Presented for consideration of the board shall neither be acted upon nor a decision made the night of the presentation in accordance with the policy under which the open forum was established. I do know that I have Bruce Weddle. He is here. If you could come to the microphone, name and address for the record. Wishing to speak under Citizens Open Forum.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. I'll try to make this fast. I see you have a very big agenda before you tonight. I sent an email to the board and to others a week or so ago because of an incident in the vicinity of Robbins Farm. I suppose you had a chance to see that. Let me just run through very, very quickly what I wanted to say. I had attempted to give some history and background on the off-leash dog program, and I'll try to be very brief about it. I'm before you tonight because of the adverse impact of the off-leash dog program promoted and sponsored by the Arlington Park and Recreation Commission, and specifically with respect to Robbins Farm, where I live. As you know, the members of the Park Commission are appointed by the town manager, subject to the approval of your board. In regarding actions of the Park Commission, or as I would characterize them, refusal to act, combined with what I consider some hostile actions on the part of the beneficiaries of the dog program, I am here to seek some specific relief. The supposedly experimental program to permit the off-leash dogs during limited hours was narrowly approved in 2010 under Article 36, after having been narrowly rejected in 2009. I've been a resident of that neighborhood for 40 years. I was a town meeting member on and off for a number of years, served on the Arts Council, and was a member and chairman of the Conservation Commission. I was proud to play a role in the town's acquisition of the Mount Gilboa land for conservation, and also in the development of Watermill Place during the tenure as a trustee of the Schwalm Mill Preservation Trust. I'm trying here to establish my bona fides as a respectful and respectable citizen. Robbins Farm. The use of the park has changed in significant ways over the past 2 or 3 years with respect to how dog owners behave. Owners in the past tended to arrive with leashed dogs on foot, roughly within the boundaries of precincts 12 and 14, and generally remain entirely within the farm and return home with a combination of street walks. The point is that the farm was not a destination for more than about 6 or 8 dog walkers in any one location at any given time. Owners circulated with their own animals. They did not congregate in any one place, and they did not do so near houses. It's a very congested area. Today, especially on Saturday and Sunday mornings, owners stand in one place chatting. Big dogs engage in pack behavior, and many owners are inattentive. I'm not quite sure how this situation came about, but I can trace some of it back to 2007 and a period roughly 4 years ago when a Boston-based dog park website said, quote, "There's a good park for dogs in Arlington called Monotony Rocks Park. People don't usually leash their dogs there. I don't think it's a requirement either." And out of that grew the encouragement of similar sites for the wider use of Arlington's facilities by the Boston area general population. At the same time, Brookline was gearing up for a supposedly dog-friendly program called Green Dog. You are all familiar with that. Mrs. Rowe was very active in it, along with Mrs. Leslie Mayer of the Recreation Commission, Park and Recreation. And literature that became available during that time suggested that enclosed areas requiring about an acre of land were desirable for a successful dog park. Selectmen Rowe and Ms. Mayer organized a series of very useful meetings to discuss possibilities of the so-called Green Dog program. And I attended and quickly came to the opinion that the proposal was badly flawed for 3 reasons. The policy decision that we had to create on a widespread basis in town a number of parks. 2, that they could be created or had to be created out of financial necessity on a cheap basis with virtually no provision for additional extensive resources. And 3, fenced-in areas could not and need not be provided if common sense and reasonable courtesy prevailed. As I say, there was the narrow attempt that failed in 2009, and I don't want to put words in Mrs. Rowe's mouth, but I believe she became somewhat enchanted after discovering that reasonableness and common sense were in short supply. If my recollection is correct, this board voted not to support the different dog off-leash law that narrowly passed. I'm speaking here now about Robbins Farm only. In my opinion, there was a sense of entitlement on the part of key proponents of the free-range dog rights program. And the reasoning to characterize it was, I paid a lot for my house, I pay a lot in taxes, my dog is integral to my lifestyle, studies show that big dogs need spaces for exercise, if they can't socialize, they'll develop warped personalities. Who do these nearby property owners think they are? They knew they were moving near a park. We're upstanding citizens. We'll enforce good behavior through peer pressure. We're responsible, and we'll pick up after our pets. The other side of the issue, represented by me and two neighbors who are here, but will not seek to burden you further, is that a leashed dog, in my view, can get its exercise as well as a free-ranging one, that the proposal that passed was unenforceable and represented a de facto repeal of the fundamental portion of the existing dog law, which is, no person shall own or keep a dog in the town of Arlington, which by biting, barking, howling, or in any other manner disturbs the peace and quiet of any neighborhood or endangers the safety of any person. And we have a great deal of anecdotal evidence that precisely those things have been happening on a regular basis. Further, there are adults who are afraid of dogs, children who are afraid of dogs. Every day I learn through happenstance of additional cases of such people in my immediate neighborhood. They have been forced to change their behavior for the benefit of a vocal minority. The other thing that really concerns me is that this dog program means a great deal more expense to the town administratively, to a vastly overburdened DPW in expense, additional for policing, additional for a very overworked and hard-working director of recreation. My own proposal would be that a very high upfront fee, $200, and a lanyard around people's necks with a number identifying the dog's number, 053, be put in place as evidence of paying for the privilege. At one point in an attempt to reach accommodation, Selectman Hurd offered to and did chair a meeting in these chambers for adversaries on both sides of the issue, and he was told by one of the key activists that this person was a conscientious objector regarding the leash law, and he did not intend to obey it. He said that flat out. My wife comes from a Maryland and Pennsylvania Quaker background, and the term conscientious objector has a serious meaning. I found that statement, and I still find it arrogant and obnoxious, but not necessarily atypical. Madam Chairman, on at least two occasions in these chambers, Selectman Hurd and Selectman Rowe have cautioned the advocates regarding the leash law that it was still in effect. This came at a time before the 2010 town meeting, and it was clearly still in effect. On both occasions, there were numerous off-leash dogs at various hours in the farm, Robbins Farm, both immediately before and after the warnings. As of the present moment, in my view, it is a farce to claim that the leash law has any effect for a significant portion of the dog-owning population. Despite pleas to the Park Commission from upstanding residents on parts of Grandview, Hawthorne, and Coolidge Roads that there should be a limit placed of about 6 to 8 animals at any one time in the park, we were rebuffed by inaction. We requested that designated farm locations exclude areas directly behind the houses at the upper northerly corner of the farm because of close proximity to houses and a major school route, and behind the odd-numbered sides of Hawthorne, where adjoining properties and private paper streets are either unfenced or accessible to roaming and unattended dogs by 3 different pathways. Again, the Commission ignored this request without comment. Let me try to shorten this. I sent you an email Saturday a week ago because when I first looked out of my living room window, you'll recall we had a great deal of snow on the ground. The snow pile in front of my house was 4 feet high. The week's trash had been collected a day late on Friday. And some 25 feet from my window stood my front living room window, stood a large plastic trash bag that had not been there the previous night. As I described in my email, it contained about 90% in individual plastic bags of the type that dog owners typically use to pick up daily droppings. Being data-driven and fact-oriented, I weighed the bag. 30 pounds. It was disgusting.
Right here.
The letter, not the bag.
The letter.
I read it before dinner.
I took this and continue to take this as a hostile action, and I reported the matter to the Arlington police. The next day, Sunday morning, my wife returned from a short leashed dog walk on the streets to report that 2 more such bags had been placed on private property further uphill on Hawthorne Avenue, one of them at the house of this gentleman here. I examined the bag to verify that the contents were primarily dog excrement. What I did not know when I wrote to your board, but I learned a day later, was that another resident had observed early the previous day several of the off-leash dog stalwarts in the farm bagging quantities of dog feces from overflowing barrels. But he had merely assumed that those involved intended the responsible removal of this material to their own properties for later collection. In the meantime, my neighbors and I were faced with keeping the filth of nearly 100 pounds of dog droppings throughout a snowy week where the bags had to be cleaned off almost daily. I can find no conceivable excuse for this willful hostility and irresponsibility. I tell the story at such length because it brings into mind a sharp, irreconcilable situation between the mindset of many of my neighbors who just want to live their lives and be left alone in peace and quiet in their neighborhood, as in dog bylaw section 1, and the incredible, to my mind, aggressive, in-your-face arrogance of some other neighbors and visitors. Nowhere does the bylaw require that trash barrels be provided for dog owners' convenience. And in fact, the duty to dispose subsection, section 3A, requires both removal and disposal from both any public area and any private property not owned or occupied by the dog owner. Here is the relief I ask, and I would be happy to have further discussion at a more timely moment. First, I should like this board to use its policy authority to get dog owner handlers, whether they're on leash or off leash, to take it upon themselves to remove the health hazard of doggy dung from the park. I should not have thought this necessary. I think the board and the commission further need to lean on off-leash owners to demonstrate goodwill by perhaps getting them to remove more than the dogs have left behind immediately, and that they specifically understand that dumping on private property is impermissible. On Friday, several days ago, I watched a woman exiting the farm with a small dog and a filled bag in hand lift the lid of my neighbor's covered trash barrel and toss Fido's deposit into it. Take it home. Please ask them to take it home.
Thank you.
The second part of my complaint was that the trash barrels are an attractive nuisance that I think we can no longer afford to maintain, both for financial reasons and sheer inaccessibility. There are about a dozen of these in the park. We did not use to require those. They were put there on a seasonal basis. It's a whole other issue, but I have watched our overworked and hardworking DPW people, and believe me, I know you've all taken it on the chin from people complaining about snow removal. The snow removal in my little corner of the world, Hawthorne and Coolidge, has been better throughout the year than at any previous time. And I think we owe a debt of gratitude to John Bean, Mike Rademacher's predecessor, him, and the entire department on that. They should not be asked to wade through 4 feet of snow to clean out doggy-doo bags. To me, frills like a dog program merely accelerate the deconstruction of our vital public services, which are already under great pressure. In particular, things I consider vital: DPW plowing and maintenance and trash collection. I hope we can have the guts to support the traditional public services that Arlingtonians of my older stripe are used to, unless and until we can afford more. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Weddle. If I